Part 245. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2445. But the smiling faces of the three of them did not immediately disappear. Instead they said with a stiff smile, "The faces are a little cramped. How long have you been laughing?" All the guests went in, and Man Bao went to entertain them. It was necessary to toast a glass of wine at a table, and it might be poured by others, so Man Bao whispered to Jolie, who was carrying the plate, "Add some plain water, half a pot of wine and half a pot of boiled water. It is best to add some honey or boiled brown sugar water into it." Jolie's Hong, "Little aunt, it's just mixed with water, why do you need to add honey and brown sugar water? You're stupid, add half a pot of water, how's the wine's color faded? Adding a little honey or brown sugar water looks real, and it's always a little sweet, so it won't be too unpleasant to drink." Bai Shan instructed in a low voice, "Don't go to the big kitchen, go to sister-in-law Jo, look at the three of us, prepare 2 more pots, otherwise it won't be enough. Jo Liz Hong, little uncle, or some of our brothers will drink for you. Lixu and Legu can now drink." Man Bao shook his head and refused. "Forget it, you are drinking at such a young age. Be careful, it will be bad for your liver in the future. Let's do it ourselves, add more brown sugar, divide a pot of wine into 3 pots, and add water and sugar water to the rest." Jo Liz Hong, "Well, in just a while, half a jug of wine becomes a third of a jug of wine." Jo Liz Hong looked at so many guests, turned around and went down with the plate. Man Bao and the three of them first talked to the steady and veteran Mr. Wei and others. Sure enough, Mr. Wei and the others did not persuade them to drink, but asked them to eat more vegetables, and they began to encourage them after eating a chopstick of vegetables. "Anyway, it is the Emperor's grace, you all have to study hard and work hard to repay His Majesty." Wei's Hai Han, who was born in the Han family, was deeply touched by this, and he took Man Bao's hand and said, "With a status like you and me, being able to achieve today's achievements is of course talented, but it is also indispensable for bull to know horses, otherwise, no matter how much talent we have, it is useless." The elders on the side looked at Wei Ji in surprise, and saw that his face was thin and red. Only then did they realize that he had drunk several glasses of wine at some point, but was just drunk. Being drunk doesn't mean that he is drunk, but he has a lot of feelings. He and Zhou Man's family background is similar, in fact, there is still a difference. Wei Ji belonged to the Han family, while Zhou Man was a commoner who was not even comparable to the Han family. Before her, none of the Zhou family could read or write. Seeing that the Zhou family was full of friends at this time, Wei Ji, who had been to the Zhou family for a drink several times, had personally experienced several changes and touched the most secret things in his heart. He took Man Bao's hand and said with red eyes, "Because of the kindness of the king, I often worry that I am not worthy of this kindness, so I must always wake up myself and do what I should do for my ministers and thousands of miles. Sir, you will do the same in the future. Your Majesty is determined to be a wise king, so all we do is to fulfill His Majesty's great wish and help him become a wise king of the ages. For this reason, we will not hesitate to lose our lives." Man Bao opened his mouth wide. Bai Shan and Bai Erlang were also stunned when they heard it. "So you often persuade your Majesty that you are jumping on the Emperor's feet in anger to repay your kindness? Well, when you think about it this way, it's really all to prevent the Emperor from making mistakes, in order to make him a Ming Jun." For a while, not only Man Bao 3 people, but also the elders sitting at the table looked at Master Wei with surprise. Seeing that Mr. Wei was so jealous that Man Bao was about to cry, he immediately stretched out his hand to support him and said, "Master Wei, you are drunk, why don't you go to the guest room to take a nap first? You have to go to the office in the afternoon." Man Bao looked at Bai Shan and Bai Erlang. The two returned to their senses, and immediately stepped forward to support the person, and help Mr. Wei to rest. Lord Tang turned his head to look at Zhao Qiuagong. What are you doing with Lord Wei's wine when you have nothing to do? Zhao Qiuagong, no one paid attention. How did he see it? Zhao Qiuagong coughed lightly, and his eyes looked a little erratically into the distance. In the distance, the emperor was riding a horse in the west inner garden. Yin Li rode his horse and led the guards behind him. He reminded the emperor in front, "Your Majesty, there is a rabbit in front of the left." The emperor saw it, so he took a bow and shot an arrow. The arrow rubbed the rabbit's neck and stuck it on the ground. The emperor was very happy. He laughed and said, "My archery has not declined." Yin Li nodded with admiration. The emperor regretted, "It's a pity that you are in filial piety, otherwise you can let go of hunting today." However, the emperor was very happy to be able to come to the horse race today. While Wei Ji was not in the palace, the other imperial censors and ministers were also not there. The emperor was very excited to run in the 11 Niiwen, and all the prey he saw wiped his neck and stuck it on the ground. He occasionally miscalculated and accidentally injured animals big and small. He also quickly had people grab them and get medicine. The emperor decided to go back in the evening and offer incense to the Bodhisattva and the Empress Dowager. The emperor ran for an hour in the west inner garden, and his muscles and bones loosened. He happily whispered to Yin Li, "I don't know if Zhao Qiuagong got people drunk." "Yin Li, it shouldn't be easy. You can wake up even if you're drunk. With Master Wei's self-control, I'm afraid you won't be late, so." "Your Majesty, it's almost time, let's go back." The emperor regretfully handed the bow to the guard behind him, nodded and said, "Tell your subordinates that today's affairs are not allowed to be shared." "Yes." The emperor happily returned to the palace, and as soon as he returned to the Taiji Hall, he became serious. And Mr. Wei at Zhou Man's house also woke up early. Not only was he awake, but his alcohol was almost gone. Zhou Man's sobering soup was good, except that it was a bit unpleasant. The effect was still good. Wei Ji was very awake and asked his long attendant, "The front is scattered. Long Sui should bend over, except for some adults who don't need to be on duty, everyone else has walked almost. The old Tang adults and the censors of the censors are all here, and even Wei Ji is here, who would dare to miss work? Therefore, except for some officials who have been on leave and those who do not need to be on duty, only some relatives and friends of the Bai and Zhou families are left, and all the others have returned. They also have to go back to sober up so that they can go back to the yamen to work." Wei Ji nodded with satisfaction, but he didn't leave. After getting dressed, he went for a walk around the place where the guests were being entertained, making sure that no fish slipped through the net. The rear moved to the front with the farewell of Bai Shan and the others. Lord Tang was sitting in front with a group of censors. Wei Ji was surprised and asked, "Why is Lord Tang still here and not going to the yamen?" Seeing him, Mr. Tang got up with some regret and said, "I have already started work, okay, it's time to return to the yamen." He turned his head and said to his subordinates, "Okay, let's walk around the gates of each of you to see who didn't go back to work on time, and also note down those who were drunk." The censors responded in unison, and then dispersed, as if it was not them who pushed the glass with others at the dinner table just now. The censor, as expected, turned his face ruthlessly. Wei Ji turned his head blankly and said to the three of Bai Shan, "There's no need to send them far, I'll be leaving now. See you tomorrow." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2446. Wei Ji went back to Shanja on time, and in the afternoon he took some official documents and went to the emperor to deal with them. The emperor didn't show anything unusual, so Wei Ji didn't know that the emperor suddenly ran for an hour because he didn't exercise for a long time, and his back was a little pantothenic acid. Man Bao and the others sent all the guests away, and immediately ran behind to find Princess Mingda and Princess Changjiao. Princess Changjiao's face was a little red, and Man Bao bumped her shoulder with a smile and asked jokingly, is it because of Lord Wei? Chang Yu blushed, but unwilling to be outdone, he glanced at Bai Shan and said, "Don't make fun of me. Who doesn't have a fiancé yet and wants to hurt each other?" Man Bao stopped talking and said to the two, "Let's go, let's play." The group quietly slipped out from the east side door. After getting on the carriage, Mingda remembered and asked, "What about your guests?" "Almost all are gone," Man Bao said, "we specially chose to hold a banquet today. The adults are going back to Shanja, and some wives are also going home to take care of the children. Those who are still staying in our house are not particularly related to my family. Well, the close ones are some old ladies who have nothing to do. These people, not to mention the presence of Grandma Lu and her mother, just her sister-in-law is enough, they don't need to come to entertain them, just the reason, the family can find a lot for them." What Man Bao said was right, there were only Madame Tang and second Miss Fu left in Zhou's house, but they were leaving now and were standing in the front yard to get on the carriage. Because of Zhou Man's relationship, Mrs. Tang and second Miss Fu have a good relationship. Although they have not been very close in the past 2 years, they occasionally meet to go out to eat, and go shopping. They can be regarded as a group of people. Mrs. Tang wanted to invite Miss Fu to come and make friends with her cousin. She likes Miss Fu's intelligence and character very much. I heard that she was not doing very well before. When she gave birth, her husband's family dared to abandon her to keep her young, and she did not show her to the doctor, but I heard that she is now in charge of the family. Even if her mother-in-law wanted to buy half a piece of cloth, she had to reach out to her for money, and her father-in-law's salary was no more than the hands of her father-in-law and mother-in-law, and was directly handed over to her. In such a situation, her father-in-law also complimented her, believing that their family had married a good daughter-in-law and helped suppress her mother-in-law and husband. She had seen their husband and wife on the road. Yu Dalin looked elegant and seemed to love his daughter-in-law very much, but he had to be gentle with Fu Erziai when he wanted to buy an inkstone. Mrs. Tang, who knew her previous relationship, did not feel pity for Yu Dalin. Instead, she secretly spat and cursed, as expected, most men are dog men. Their old Tang was an accident. County Magistrate Tang didn't know that he was being praised by his wife in his heart, so he sneezed 2 consecutive sneezes when he returned to the county office. He rubbed his nose, enjoying himself. "Someone misses me." Mrs. Tang hopes that her cousin can learn these methods from Fu Er. Of course, it is not used on the Ma family, because the Ma family can't use it anymore. But this kind of domineering and ability can be learned. Fu Er's loss is a loss in the family world. The Fu family's family is higher than the Yu family's, and their family will not keep Fu Er in the Yu family, and leave early. In Dajin, the daughter's family is still very honorable. The carriage had just walked out for a while, and Mrs. Tang felt that the few carriages passing around the corner looked familiar. That seems to be the carriage that Zhou Man and the others often ride in, and the guards on the side are the guards of the Bai family, right? Madame Tang frowned and said inexplicably, "Didn't you say that the 3 of them were drunk from a toast and couldn't get up on their stomachs?" Mrs. Tang's girl also looked at it carefully, and said unsurely, "Maybe I'll send someone to send. Doesn't it mean that there are many relatives in the Bai family?" Madame Tang sneered, "They? I'm afraid they won't leave until the evening. If they stay late, they may not want to leave." Yes, the relatives of the Bai clan did not leave, and were still talking to Mrs. Lu and the Jian family. Bai Shi was very satisfied with this marriage, and even in his heart, he actually felt that Bai Shan was able to have today, and half of it was due to Zhou Man's power. There has been a quiet discussion among the Bai clan, thinking that if Bai Shan was not brought by Zhou Man, a little genius doctor who is famous all over the capital, he would not be able to enter the palace, let alone sue the imperial court. After hitting the drum, he went to the half-life first. How could it be appropriate and sensational for him to directly meet His Majesty and file a lawsuit? He has built a reputation for it. And because Zhou Man wanted to see a doctor for the prince and the princess, he followed him into the Chongguan Museum and became the prince's companion at once. It was this time that he was awarded the title because he followed Zhou Man to the west to find a prescription, and then he came across the western expedition. If he was lucky, he would take the city of Kyosai, otherwise. So Zhou Man is a blessed person, whoever stands next to him benefits. There are those who are envious, but there are more who are jealous. Therefore, the old lady and wives of the clan from the Bai family were very enthusiastic about the Qian family and several sisters-in-law of the Zhou family, and they could not wait to live in the Zhou residence. Unfortunately, not to mention the Zhou family, even the old lady Lu didn't seem to understand what they said, that it was difficult to live in the capital, and just followed with a sigh, yes, the price of the capital in the capital is too high, and the house is also expensive, it's really everything. Expensive. Qianxi even said, if our family hadn't had a salaries full of treasures, her brothers would still be able to work and earn some money, and we wouldn't dare to live in the capital, it would be too expensive. Mrs. Lu sighed even more, no, our family relies on the few acres of land that we still have left, and we need to collect some rent to support Shanbao's studies. Otherwise, our mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, two widows, are unemployed, and I don't know what to do. Just fine. Qianxi agreed, it's also difficult for my relatives. Mrs. Lu laughed, thanks to Man Bao Hoshan, he deliberately kept us here, saving us a fortune in rent, otherwise it would have been more difficult. The clan of the Bai family smiled reluctantly. They did not know that Mrs. Lu owned 2 houses in the capital, but they knew that Bai Shan and the others had rented in Changqing Lane when they entered the city. Now the house in Changqing Lane is still by Dalan. Bought it with money. However, I heard that the place is not big enough for the 2 of them to live. Bai Erlang, as the uncle, is not easy to go back and squeeze, so he has been living with his husband here in Zhouman. That's right, Bai Shan and Bai Erlang naturally have legitimate reasons to live here, and of course it can't be too soft to spread out because Bai Shan is Man Bao's fiancé. So all the time, Zhou Bai's family's rhetoric was that they lived here with Mr. Zhuang. It is only natural for the husband to live with the students, and the other students live with the husband. However, this time Bai's clan couldn't help but quietly said to Mrs. Lu, our family Shanbao is also a viscount after all. Although he follows Mr. Zhuang, this is also his fiancée's house, so it's not good. If you live here all the time, it is better to buy another house and move out as soon as possible, otherwise he will not be able to support the Yu family in the future. See you at 6 p.m. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2447. Mrs. Lu was shaken, her face was full of approval, and she pulled her persuasion person and whispered, good brother and sister, how can I not know about this? But you have been in the capital for a while, you should know that this capital's how can a house be so good to buy? She said, on the inner city side, a small yard can cost thousands of dollars. Since Shanbao's father left, Shanbao's mother and I have barely made a living to provide for Shanbao's studies. How can there be so much money? Buy house. If we buy the outer city, our family can't afford to lose that person, Mrs. Lu said, and the people who live in the outer city are incomparable to those in the inner city. We can't marry the 2 children in the future, and let them go from Chongyu and Fangli and move to the outer city to live. Don't say that my in-laws are not happy, even me, can't make fun of Shanbao's future. The person who made the proposal forced a laugh. She didn't believe that Mrs. Lu couldn't even take out $1,000. Their family had a lot of assets, even if they handed it over to a part of the clan back then, she took away a lot. She still has a lot of land and Zhuangzi in Longzhou, and that area also has their Bai family's property. I heard that there is a lot of harvest every year. A few years ago, the new wheat seeds that were very lively in Longzhou, I heard that their family shipped them from the south, must have made a lot of money. But Mrs. Lu said that she had no money, so she couldn't mention it, she could only laugh. But Mrs. Lu didn't let her go, and dragged her to continue. Brother and sister don't know, the cost of being an official and not being an official is different. His mother and I only need enough food and drink, but there is no grievance for the child. She snapped her fingers and said, people want a good Xian pen, we Shanbao can't use such a good one, but we have to use a lake pen or a Shanlian pen, right? People use a Douhe inkstone, and we always have to prepare one at home. Chen Yan, not to mention the paper ink sticks that he uses every day, how can he keep his head up outside? Zheng, who was on the side, was stunned. They also have these things at home, but the ones that his son uses in daily life are obviously very ordinary, but the pens and inkstones that his mother said are basically the only ones that you need to draw or frame at home. Only used when writing. Mrs. Lu continued, there are also accessories for the child. After all, it is the son of a noble family. Even if he has no father, he is less than others, but he can't miss too many things. I can't be as shabby as my classmates, maintaining this decent fee. Mrs. Lu didn't say much, just wiped her tears with a handkerchief. She said, how come I don't know that it's not good to live in Joe's house, let's not talk about it, after a while, the two children get married, how will my mother and I face this granddaughter-in-law? You are my own family, I only said it. If it was someone else, I wouldn't say such a thing. Well, it's not because our widow is unemployed and many things left by our ancestors are gone, so we let our children suffer this grievance. The face of the sister-in-law who was held by her changed slightly, and she dared not bring up this topic again. When she got back to their house, she still couldn't help calling her son, told her what she said truthfully, and asked, what do you mean by her words? Bai Men frowned, is she trying to communicate with the clan through her mother? The old lady said worriedly, I also feel this way. It is impossible to say that she is short of money. No one in the family knows that she is a capable person. When the ancestral property was so big, it was our family who hired her. The nephew of her family came over, but the descendants were all fine, and after only 2 days of staying, the other party changed his voice, took the things from the clan, and went to help her instead. Otherwise, Mrs. Lu wouldn't have been able to leave when she said that. Although there has been little contact between the two sides in recent years, her family's properties and Zhuangzi are not far away, and everyone in the clan knows that the business is not bad, she said, if you say that Bai Shan spends more than I trust, but no one does it. 1 or 2 children who are studying. No one else has such a difficult situation. She said this, I am afraid she is thinking of the ancestral heritage of the clan. Bai Men pursed his lips in displeasure and asked, why did she bring this up all of a sudden? The old lady is a little embarrassed. It can't be said that she doesn't like people, and she took the initiative to bring up the matter of buying a house in the capital, right? Seeing the old lady's reaction, Bai Men also vaguely understood something and asked, are there many people there at the time? The old lady said helplessly, we whispered in private, besides me, only your wife and sister-in-law are here. Bikeman. The old lady waited for him to make up his mind. Bai Men thought about it for a long time, and finally said, forget it, I'll discuss it with the 5th one. Let's also talk to the big brother. As for how to decide, it's up to the big brother. This eldest brother is naturally Bai Wei, the current patriarch of the Bai clan. In the past 2 years, his father Bai Jing was old and fell ill twice. And Bai Wei, like most aristocratic family leaders, did not become an official, but concentrated on taking care of the family at home, and now he is very strict with family studies. And the 5th is Bai Hung, who has been relatively close to the Zhou family and Bai Shan's family in the past 2 years, and Zhou Shilang is still called uncle and nephew. Bai Heng almost vomited blood when he heard that they had suffered so badly. Third brother, why are you talking to their family about this, the old lady? He said, I have deliberately avoided this matter for the past 2 years. Who doesn't know that the aunt of the fourth room is so powerful that so many clan elders couldn't do anything about her back then? Why did you send messages on purpose? Bai Min said, the old ladies are comparing and sarcastic with each other, what can I do? Besides, it's not an option to hide this matter all the time. Bai Min sat down on the chair and brought a cup of tea. He pondered, if you want me to say, since Sifang is so tough, why don't you give them something? Give it to them. Bai Heng smiled bitterly, pointed to himself and asked, is it, or you? He said, even if our two families are willing to give it, what about the other families? They have been in their hands for more than 10 years, and what they have eaten has turned into something. Is it possible for them to spit it out? Is this the reason for us? Bai Min said, to put it bluntly, the fourth room was unwilling to take it out back then, but in the end it didn't take it out. The same is true for us. But it depends on who is stronger. Weak. Bai Heng couldn't help muttering, their family isn't that big, right? Bai Min glanced at him and said, I just want to go back when they are not powerful enough to repair the relationship. If their family is so powerful that we have to pay it back, then it is better not to pay it back and find a reason directly. Forget about dividing their room. Bai Heng's face turned pale when he heard the words, branch? Third brother, their family is not very far from our direct branch. If it spreads out, how will our Bai family behave? So, while Bai Shan is still young, take out all those things, and even buy some more, and find a reason to give it to the fourth room. I think the reason given by the fourth room's aunt is good. Bai Shan has grown up, so he should, after buying a home and getting married, we should give him something from our clan. See you at 9. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2448. Bai Heng felt that this was impossible, and he still said, who is willing to spit out what he ate? Bai Min looked at him with a smile but not a smile and said, didn't you say it? It doesn't depend on people's willingness or not. It depends on the power and weakness. Yes, the fourth room has not yet had the power to call the clan generals. Things are handed over, but the family has it. If the clan speaks, will you give it to fifth brother or not? Bai Heng was silent. Bai Min got up, flicked the dust that didn't exist on his robe, and said, I will write a letter to my eldest brother and uncle. This is not a small matter. Since the fourth room has brought it up, we must seize the opportunity to repair the relationship and pretend to be deaf. To be dumb, it will be difficult to maintain even your face in the future. He said, Bai Shan is already a viscount before he has reached the crown. The most important thing is that he is a jinchi, and he will be elected to an official position soon. It can be seen with the naked eye. Who is the son of the entire Bai family who can compare to him? Do you really want to have a grudge against him? Baek Hyun turned and left. The place where they live now is a different courtyard that their family bought in the capital, and it is also in the inner city. After all, it is a noble family, and it is a direct branch. This little bit of capital can still be used. When the two families bought a house, they bought it in one place, and the family also had a house in the capital, but it belonged to the big family. The children who came to Beijing to study were fine for a period of time, but it was not good for those who brought their families to live there. But this time, there are a lot of Bai clan relatives who come to join in the fun. Not everyone can afford a house in the capital, so they can either live with the brothers Bai Min and Bai Heng, or rent a house nearby. It's still a bit crowded, and a small yard may be crowded with two families. So when I went to Zhou's house, I saw Mrs. Lu and Zheng's taking up such a big yard. The entire east side of the Zhou's house had 3 entrances, and their mother-in-law and daughter-in-law were the two masters. And they spend so much money that they can buy a yard with 2 children at most in the capital, not to mention a set of yard. That yard is a bit discounted, and it can't fit 3 carriages. On Joe's side, all the guests were sent off, and the smile on Mrs. Liu's face fell. She let out a tired sigh and walked back with Zheng's hand, reviewing today's day in her mind as she walked. The people you see, the words you say. After thinking about it, he turned his head and asked Mrs. Zheng, how long have Shanbao and the others been out? Zheng, she knew her mother-in-law's habit and knew that this was the end of her thoughts, so she immediately said, it's been almost an hour, and she said she was going to Huguo Temple to swim in the lake. Mrs. Liu smiled and said, let them play, there won't be so many free days after joining the job. Zheng Shi also nodded, agreeing. Mrs. Liu continued, when he enters the post, we will mention the marriage of the 2 families with the in-laws. Zheng Shi couldn't help but ask, Mother, then getting married, do you want to be here? Mrs. Liu smiled and said, of course we can't get married here. I want to buy a yard in Changqing Lane. I have already asked people to see it. The yard with 2 entrances has a small garden and lives with Dallin and the others. It's almost the same, but it faces well and is spacious inside, much better than the early Lane set. When they get married, we can live on both sides, she said. In terms of accommodation, the Zhou residence is naturally the best. Shanbao and the others are also easy to get in and out of, even if they go on errands, they should be quicker. You don't need to mind the accident. Statement. Zheng said, I know, if you mind the words of those people, my mother and I don't have to live long ago. Mrs. Liu laughed, patted the back of her hand and said, that's the truth, benefits are the most important thing. In the future, the 2 of them will have a child with the surname Xia. If you care about these words, not only us, but also the unborn child. Can't live anymore. Mrs. Liu has spent most of her life living in various rumors, and has a set of her own cognition, and Mrs. Zheng has always been with her. Although she has a soft temper, some cognitions are the same as those of her mother-in-law. As soon as they heard that they still lived in Zhou's house after they got married, Zheng was happy and decided to go back and remodel the flower house. All the flowers that he wanted to grow before can be planted. At this time, Qianxi was also talking to Lao Zhutu about Man Bao's marriage. It's just that the Bai family has spoken, and when Bai Shan becomes an official, they will come over to mention the marriage. Lao Zhutu immediately sat up straight, and quickly asked, did the in-laws say where to get married? Listen, they want to buy a house on Changqing Lane. Old Zhutu couldn't help but muttered, why did you buy a house again? Don't their family already have 2 sets of yards in the capital? He murmured, can the yard over there be as big as ours? It's not a place to live, so why spend money to buy it? Qianxi gave him a sideways look and said, Man Bao always wants to go out, and Bai Shan is not married. Naturally, when you get married, you have to get married from here and then go to the Bai family. What are you anxious about? After the first month, they will naturally move back in. Old Zhutu was refreshed. What did Mrs. Liu say? Although she didn't say it clearly, I could see the meaning. She smiled lightly. That's why I said that this marriage was well established, and the old lady was very generous, and she wouldn't be blindly pressed like those other women. Daughter-in-law and granddaughter-in-law do not give their heads. Old Zhou whispered, I didn't say I disagree with this marriage. Then what date will their family choose? It's already April, so why don't we get married after August or September, or after winter? In winter, the pot is delicious, and the banquet is also easy. Qian said rudely, I think August and September are not bad. Let's look at the date of their newspaper. By the way, I was just about to tell you. Today, Liru's marriage was also mentioned. Whose house? You also know the little son of the Lu family who often comes to play at home. Old Zhou opened his mouth wide, and it took a long time for him to return to his senses. He asked, "Isn't their family very powerful? Then Master Lu is still the Shangshu. I heard Man Bao say that he is in charge of the salaries of all officials, and the money in the world is all the money. He's in charge." It was because of this that Jianxi was a little worried, so I didn't agree. "The pot is too big, and the lid of our house is too small, I'm afraid it won't be able to cover it," she said. "When Man Bao comes back and ask her, Li Ru has to ask her too. She will be an official just like her aunt in the future. I have watched for the past 2 years, and it seems that these big families in the capital are all. I'm not very happy for my daughter-in-law to go out to be an official." Old Zhou pouted, "That's because the food is too good. It's not good to have a daughter-in-law who can be an official, and you can support your family with dignity. Look at the big-headed daughter-in-law, how well their young couple is living, the family should respect her more." "A bit. Yes, Lu Sunyang is the most respected person besides Man Bao in Lao Zhou's house, because she is an official. This honor was specially given by the old Zhutu, and the Jian family did not object, so now even Zhou Lixiu is determined to marry an official daughter-in-law in the future. See you tomorrow." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2449. Man Bao and the others didn't know that the family was worrying about their family affairs. At this time, they were rafting on the lake. Several people were sitting in the canopy of the boat, making tea and placing the food they had just bought from the shore on the table. When the boat floated into the lake, the boatman did not row much, and let it slowly drift toward the center of the lake. A few people sat comfortably in the boat, blowing the breeze, not happy. Mingda sat and watched the pedestrians passing by on the shore, and said enviously, "I really envy you, you can come here every day." Man Bao, "Why, we are very busy." Mingda laughed, "No matter how busy you are, it's still good to take a car to walk around after the office." Man Bao said, "Isn't there a lake over there at Daming Palace?" "The lake there is bigger than here." "How can you compare?" Chang Yu said while twisting and eating, "There is no one selling things there, and there are not so many people." Minda nodded. Man Bao thought about it too, there is still a big difference between shopping on the street and shopping in the palace. Man Bao comforted, "It's okay, you can do it next year too." When Mingda and Chang Yu heard this, their faces turned red. The two princesses experienced the daily routine of rafting in the lake, eating and drinking, and they did not move to Hyogyo Temple until it was late. "I received Zhou Man's post yesterday and have been waiting for their abstinence." If he hadn't been with him for a long time, and had lived and died together, Ji Yan would have suspected that they were playing tricks on him. Jahan got up from the futon, looked around at the few people who were looking for someone, and said, "Master Zhou, Master Bai, Master is waiting in the Zen room, please." His eyes swept across Mingda and Chang Yu, feeling a little familiar, as if he had seen them somewhere. Thoughts flashed past, Ji Yan took 2 steps before he remembered, it seemed that these were 2 princesses. Abandonment. But he didn't change his expression, he just did not know, leading them to see Master's Hiren. Chang Yu didn't expect that they would really see Master's Hiren. She remembered that he was not easy to meet. In the past, except for the father and grandmother, only the mother and queen occasionally saw him. Even if the prince's elder brother comes, it depends on whether Master's Hiren wants to see him or not. Chang Yu quietly asked Man Bao, "You have such a good relationship with Master's Hiren." Man Bao whispered, "We have a better relationship with Jahan." Ji Yan, "Nonsense, when did his relationship with them get better? It is clear that the master talks to them more." In the hearts of Man Bao and the others, their relationship with Ji Yan is really good, not to mention that they saved Ji Yan. Ji Yan also took the risk to save them, right? So they are a lifelong friendship. With this understanding in mind, Bai Shan asked Ji Yan, "Master Ji Yan, you said last time that you learned Kung Fu in Hyogyo Temple, so can we learn it by pretending to be lay disciples? Master Ji, you have to ask the host about this. Bai Erlang said rudely, you said that last time in the western regions, haven't you asked for us? He was not polite, and Jidi was not polite at all, and asked them, aren't you believers? How can you be a lay disciple of the Buddhist school? What's the matter, we can also be Taoist laymen, Man Bao said, I think your Kung Fu is good. She said, Taoists have a set of health-preserving boxing, which can prolong life. It was learned from the Taoist priest on the mountain near our village. If you teach us Kung Fu, we can teach you health-building boxing. Ji Yan, I don't really want to learn this. Man Bayadao, I think you will want to learn, you know, I have studied carefully, the masters in Buddhism must live long enough, the longer people live, the deeper the understanding of Buddhism, the world the people who have become more and more convinced of each other, if you want to become a master, you must live long enough. She said, I've seen your Kung Fu, it's too stubborn, long-term practice is actually harmful to the body, just like you don't need it at ordinary times, but once you use it, the body's meridians and flesh and bones will wear and tear, although people look young, but the body is old. It will not last long. Jinhan frowned, because he knew that Zhou Man was right. He was originally a warrior monk, and he specialized in protecting Master Qinin. He never had the chance to come into contact with those profound Buddhist teachings in his entire life, but he started to follow his master at the age of 8. It was the master who saw that he was also somewhat savvy, so he taught him from time to time some truth. In addition, he has been with Zhiren for the longest time, so he slowly learned some Dharma. But monks are still his main path. This set of Kung Fu he learned was originally the Angry I King Kong technique, and it was indeed too stubborn, causing some damage to the body. Man Bayadao, and my Taoist Kung Fu is dedicated to health preservation. I'm not very good at fighting, but I can adjust the muscles and bones of the limbs, and then adjust the breath to nourish the meridians. Our family, up to our husband, down to my nephews and nieces. I usually dance Wukanexai when I'm not free, and play the set of punches when I'm free, it's very useful. She highly recommended, I'm a doctor, and my recommendation can't be wrong. Ji angrily said, the practice method is from Hyogyo Temple. I don't dare to pass it on without permission from the host, and Jitan looked them up and down and said, you guys are too old, and you can't learn much. To learn well at your age, you have to put in a lot of perseverance and a lot of time to polish your body, but do you have time? Ji Yan knew that they were either still studying in the palace, or they were going to be employed as officials, not to mention Zhou Man, who had just been released from Huangchuang, so there must be more work to do next. Bai Shandao, let's not learn too much. We think you are very strong and dodge very well. We only need to learn some fur, and if we encounter some thieves after going out, we will not be bullied. Jahan glanced at Daji and other guards who were following behind, and said, don't you have guards? Especially the one named Daji, he followed them inseparably, he had seen him do it, and he was very organized, and his kung fu was not very bad, and it was enough to deal with ordinary masters. But that is Daji handsome, not their handsome. In the past, Bai Shan and the others also watched the guards do their work. To be honest, it was difficult for them to want to practice martial arts. At most, they wanted to jump on the roof like Daji. However, after seeing Ji Yan's actions, they were shocked to realize that martial arts in the world can be so beautiful. Every move has a different rhythm, which is not only eye-catching, but also blood-boiling. Even Yin or Du's eyes were shining. If his body didn't allow it, he would want to learn along with him. Several people looked at Ji Angxing Xinjian together, pointed to the roof and said, even if we learn it, we can fly to the roof as soon as we turn around. Qi Ren's laughter came from the front yard, Ji Yan, since a few little friends want to learn, then you can teach them. Bai Shan and the others' eyes lit up, and only then did they realize that the person who could really make the decision, crossed the precept and anger and went into the courtyard to greet Master Ji Ren with a smile. See you at 6 p.m. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2450. Masters Hiran first smiled and nodded with them, then looked at the two princesses Mingda and Changjiao, smiled and saluted them, and said with a smile, "What are the two princesses coming to this temple for?" Mingda hurriedly said, "Grandmother worshipped the Buddha before she died, and we thought of coming to offer incense to the grandmother to pray for blessings. This is easy to handle, but they are princesses, and the incense burners are naturally different, so Masters Hiran asked the host to arrange it." Masters Hiran left without waiting for the end of the Western expedition. They took another route to return, and they were much faster than Manbao and the others. After returning to the capital, the news of the victory of the Western expedition came. It has been 4 months since Zhou Man and the others came back, but they have never contacted each other. At this time, Masters Hiran looked at them up and down, and found that several of them had grown a lot taller, and their faces looked a lot more determined, and the childishness of the first meeting had dissipated a lot. Masters Hiran smiled and sighed in his heart, after all, he has grown up. Masters Hiran asked Ji Yan to teach Bai Shan and the others their martial arts. Ji Yan no longer said anything to report back to the host, and directly responded. Manbao and the others were overjoyed, then sat down to talk to Masters Hiran, looking like he cared about him very much, and asked him, "Is it smooth for Master to come back? Did you encounter anything interesting on the way?" Masters Hiran smiled and said, "Naturally it is not as magnificent as the little friends." They talked for a long time about going west and returning to the east, and Bai Shan also encouraged him. Now several countries in the western regions have surrendered to the Great Jin, and there will be no more wars in a short period of time. If Masters Hiran still wants to go to the western regions to seek Buddhist scriptures, now this times are the best. Masters Hiran smiled and nodded, saying that he would consider setting off after he had translated the Buddhist scriptures in his hand. Mingda listened with envy beside him. Chang Yu wasn't too interested in these, so he quietly bit his ears with Manbao. "Master Jahan's martial arts are very powerful." Manbao nodded and said with a thumbs up, "So powerful." Chang Yu rolled his eyes and said, "Can he make whips?" "All monks practice hard skills. I'm afraid it's not suitable for you. You might as well practice whips with me. I'll tell you that my whips are good." Manbao had seen it before, but she didn't think it looked good. "I think I can fly to the roof with a single jump, and my body is elegant, but now I can only step on the wall and jump up to the top of the wall, and I have to climb for a while, which is not very beautiful. And weapons, I still think the sword looks good." "The whip saves effort," Chang Yu said. "As long as you master the skill, you can throw flowers while standing, and others can't get close to you. I don't want a battlefield, I just want to look good. It's not ladylike at all, jumping up and down. Isn't it good to stand pretty and swing the whip?" "Manbao, I still want to fly." "You've never seen the leaping kung fu when Ji Yan fights with people. Every move is just like the person in the painting. It's clean and neat, and it's very beautiful." "Chang Yu, just to look good." "Not exactly," Manbao sighed. "On this trip, we learned that it is very dangerous outside. Although there are guards to protect him, he can use martial arts skills, and he can save his life at critical moments, right? People say that famous teachers come out master apprentices. The martial art of abstaining from hatred is the best among the people we know. Chang Yu, can you be more powerful than Li Shangshu and Sukuagong in the court? I've never seen them fight." The topic gradually drifted away, and when the host in front was ready, Man Bao and the others got up and said goodbye to Masters Hiran, and accompanied the two princesses to burn incense. The guards and maids who came to Hyogyo temple in advance also showed up. They took out the sesame oil money prepared in the morning and handed it to the host. Seeing that the sunset was about to go down, they were ready to go back down the mountain. Mingda and Chang Yu didn't let the carriage come up, but walked down the steps together and mixed with the crowd of pilgrims. Mingda was very excited and said to Manbao, "Look, no one recognizes us." No one recognized Mingda and the others, but everyone could see that their identities were not simple. However, Hyogyo Temple is a national temple, and there are many high-ranking officials and nobles who come to offer incense, so the pilgrims did not look at them very much, but just moved away slightly, not too close to their group. But that's enough to make Mingda happy. Chang Yu didn't understand this kind of happiness, but when the sisters were happy, she was also happy with her. When she got into the car, she was still recommending her whip with Manbao. "If you learn whip from me, I will give you the whip I used when I was a child. It was a 10th birthday gift from my mother to me." Mingda was amused when he heard it. "Why is my elder sister so easy to be a teacher all of a sudden? It's rare that someone likes martial arts as much as I do. Naturally, it's better to play the whip like me, so that we can play together in the future." Manbao leaned on the side of the car window and said to her, "You are stupid. You use a whip, and I also use a whip. When we play together, do you play with a whip together? It's too boring." She said, "You should learn the whip, I learn the sword, so that the whip is good for the sword. Aren't you going to practice martial arts with a monk? It should be a palm or a fist, right?" Chang Yu hit her. "At most, it's a stick. Long soldiers versus short soldiers, you will definitely lose." Manbao listened for a while, and said not to be outdone, "What's the point? I won't pull your whip close to you. When the time comes, your whip won't be able to draw it, and it will be useless." Seeing that the two were fighting each other inside and outside the car, Mingda hurriedly stopped the two and said, "You guys haven't compared yet, it's all a matter of words. Especially Manbao, have you learned?" Manbao suddenly stopped talking. Chang Yu pulled back a game, he happy. Mingda knocked on the carriage and asked the driver to go back to the palace. She and Manbao said, "You can learn martial arts while you're in the sky first." When the carriage started to move, Manbao loosened the car window and let it aside. Chang Yu poked his head out of the window and said, "Manbao, you still have 4 days of vacation, learn first, we will meet you when you enter the palace." "Right." Manbao corrected, "It's 6 days. Then he said, "I'm going to inspect my job field farm. I can only study for 2 days at most. I won't fight against you, at least after I have studied for half a year." The carriage was getting farther and farther away, and Chang Yu could only say loudly, "2 days have passed, and there are still 4 days." The carriage was far away, and Manbao didn't bother to answer her. Mingda would definitely tell her anyway. Sure enough, before Chang Yu's head was taken back, Mingda had already said, 4 days will be a 10-day holiday, and 2 days together will make up 6 days. Chang Yu stayed for a while. "Oh my god, she took such a long vacation." Mingda smiled and said, "She has been locked up in Huangzhuang for so long, so naturally she will have to stay longer, and it is also a coincidence that during the 6th-day vacation, she just went to a big court meeting and a yamen one day, and it just happened to be a 10-day break. It's not just right." Xiao Yuan is planning to arrange time for Manbao and Imperial Physician Lu. After all, people have been locked in Huangzhuang for so long, and the psychological pressure is still quite large, so they can take a rest. Imperial Physician Lu has been resting very well recently, and Manbao plans to go to make up for the spring outing, but before that, she has to visit Mrs. Tang's cousin. "I want a vacation, I want a long vacation. See you at 9. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2451. This time, the time to see Wang Rule was not too tight at all, because Lu Sunyang was going to the palace as an errand, so Man Bao passed by himself calmly. The people from Tang Mansion were still stunned when they saw her, and then they smiled and walked forward to guide her. Why are you here at this time? Our wife also explained that she will make your favorite meatballs at noon, so I thought of you coming at noon. Available. Man Bao said, you all know about the backyard. After Eliwan explained, I'm taking a break, I don't have to come in time for noon, so I came earlier. She was sent to the second door, and the aunt, the backyard steward, who heard the news, trotted to pick her up, smiled and saluted, Miss Man, our wife is waiting in the guest house. Man Bao went all the way and didn't see the servants of the Ma family. She didn't see the servants of the Ma family until she entered the main room of the guest house and saw Wang Rule, who was sitting on the soft couch. She glanced at the two servants beside Wang Rule. The girl, as well as the familiar Tang Mansion girl who was newly replaced in the room, raised her eyebrows and looked at Madame Tang. Do you want me to have needles alone today? Do you want to cover up for you? Madame Tang nodded angrily on her forehead. You're weird, show her if she can go out. Man Bao took out the pulse pillow and said strangely, going far? Are you going to go back? This is not good, you have to take medicine for at least 4 months. Mrs. Tang, going to Yangzhou, it doesn't take long, I'll be back in 3 or 2 days. It's a 2-hour drive, what a long way to go. Man Bao waved, go, go, as long as you don't get cold. She smiled and said, it's just right, tomorrow I'm going to my Zhuangzi to stay for a few days, and I may also go to Yangzhou. My Zhuangzi is not very far from Yangzhou. If you have any health problems, just send someone to Zhuangzishang to find me. Man Bao asked, when are you going to Yangzhou? Let's go in the afternoon. Madame Tang thought of something, and suddenly rushed to Man Bao with a smile, since you are going to Zhuangzi, it is better to go directly to Yangzhou tomorrow. I will invite you to dinner and have some things for you. When Man Bao heard that he had something to give, he immediately asked, what is it? Madame Tang smiled and said, I won't tell you first, you'll know when you go tomorrow. Man Bao thought for a while and nodded, feeling that it would be nothing to go there. Anyway, her Zhuangzi was not far from Yangzhou. Wang Rule's recovery is okay, and now there is no problem going out, but he can't be too tired. Man Bao gave her an injection and changed the medicine before leaving. As soon as she left, Wang Rule asked Mrs. Tang, a little puzzled, why did the eldest sister call her? Madame Tang said, just in case. Wang Rule understood, she was silent for a while and then asked, what about the child? Mrs. Tang said slowly, don't worry, my father said in a letter that the child will stay at the Ma's house first, and they will serve it with both hands. Wang Rule was relieved. Man Bao went home happily. Bai Erlang was still on leave, and was sitting leisurely in the flower room drinking tea. When he heard that Man Bao was going to Yangzhou, he immediately said, I am going too. Man Bao looked at him, aren't you going back to study after taking your leave? Bai Erlang, what books are you reading? Chongguan Museum is very busy now. I heard that they will choose a new group of people to come in to study with the prince. Last time, 3 of our lecturers were absent from class. Man Bao asked, is that Mr. Busy? Sir, it's okay. The most busy is Kong Jiju. He wants to give the prince a national policy, and he also gives us lessons. He, just because he is busy, we have less homework, so it is very easy to ask for leave now. It's just that Kong Jiju likes to arrange endorsement and copying assignments when he is busy. This time they asked for leave, and Kong Jiju directly assigned them a lot of endorsement tasks. Bai Shan asked him, how many days can you ask for leave? Bai Erlang counted with his fingers and sighed, it depends on when they choose a good person. You said that the Chongguan Museum has added so many people back and forth. In the future, when it comes to the prince's companion reading, isn't it all half-time? Then it depends on whether half of the people who have passed the Jinshi Mingjing test, Bai Shan said. How many have you taken the test now? Anyway, Bai Erlang didn't have a few days to be free. He decided to go to Layan or go to the water and ask for leave with him. The probability of him being able to approve the vacation is higher. So in the afternoon, the Chongguan Museum received the leave application letter from Bai Erlang and the others. The reviewer thought about it. It happened that he had a lot of classes in the past 2 days. Thinking that it would be a 10-day break in a few days, he simply granted them a vacation. By the time Kong Jiju knew, Bai Erlang and the others had already cheered and went straight to Yangzhou. Lu Huan packed up and went with them. His reasons were very good. When I choose an official position, I won't be so comfortable anymore. Grandmother, just tell my grandfather to let me go. Guo Shi directly waved. You go, you don't have to tell your grandfather. She smiled at Lu Huan and said, get along well with Lord Zhou. She is an elder, so listen to what others have to say. Lu Huan shivered and took 2 steps back to look at his grandmother. Grandma, what's the matter with you recently? Why are you always saying something strange? Bai Shan and I are classmates, and Zhou Man is also half classmates. Most of them are seniors in my officialdom. How can they be seniors? Guo Shi thought about it, but decided to tell him, your grandfather and I are begging you to marry her niece, the little girl named Li. Are you? Lu Huan rolled his eyes. Guo continued, but they refused. Lu Huan's eyes widened even more. He doesn't want to go to Yangzhou anymore. How can he meet people? Guo Shi understood what his grandson was thinking at a glance, and said, people think that our family is too high, so I thought, I'm afraid you have to fight for this daughter-in-law in the end. Lu Huan, how can I fight? To please some elders, don't you and Bai Shan's human have a good relationship? Get along well first. By the way, do you like the little lady of the Zhou family? Lu Huan blushed and was speechless for a long time. He didn't know if he liked it or not, but he didn't hate it, but everyone refused. Silly child, she probably doesn't know about this, but her family declined it, saying that our family backgrounds are not compatible. This is distressing for the child, afraid that their daughter will come to our house and be wronged, so you treat me well. People are girls, people will naturally be willing. Lu Huan complained, Grandma, why didn't you tell me about such a big thing in advance? I just asked tentatively. I haven't said anything about the 8 characters. I told you, if you can't turn around, would you still be embarrassed to see others? It can't be done now, so why did you tell me? It's good to keep hiding it from him. He didn't want to know at all. Guo Shi hated that iron could not be made of steel. That's because Grandma really likes it and thinks that they just refused. You can also win 1 or 2 here. Originally, Guo's and Lu Shangshu thought that if the Zhou family agreed, it would be best to tell the children at that time, and then move on to the next step. There are still many steps to follow. If the Zhou family refuses, there is no need to tell the children, just pretend there is no such thing. But after visiting Zhou's house this time, the more Guo thought about it, the more unwilling she became, and the more she thought that her grandson was suitable for Zhou Liruo, so she told Lu Huan to let him fight for it himself. See you tomorrow. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2452. Man Bao and the others were standing not far from the inner city gate with their horses, and they couldn't help but look up at the sun, and then looked at the sun again. Bai Shan held her head down and said, don't look at it, you'll be blind in a while. Man Bao couldn't help complaining, why did Lu Huan take so long? Yin He also lifted the curtain and glanced out, and then said to them, would you like to get in the car and wait? Man Bao and the others weren't waiting in the car. They just found a nearby tea house and went in to sit. Yin Or rounded his eyes and got out of the car and followed in. The group of four drank a cup of tea before Lu Huan walked around with people, and came reluctantly. Bai Shan looked strange. Do you want to go, or do you not want to go? Ming Ming was very excited when he said it yesterday, and kept insisting to wait for him. If his grandfather didn't agree, he would have to go to his house and steal him out. Why didn't he see him overnight? Lu Huan couldn't help but look at Zhou Man. Zhou Man looked back at him innocently. Why are you looking at me? Seeing that she didn't seem to know, Lu Huan breathed a sigh of relief, looked left and right and asked, your niece isn't here. Man Bao looked at him suspiciously. You said Li are you? She wants to go to school. You think she is you? It is impossible for our family to ask for leave and not go to school if there is no major event. Bai Erlang and Yin on the side were struck by a knowing heart. Because only the two of them were present, and they had deliberately asked for a leave of absence from going to school. Lu Huan touched his chest and breathed a sigh of relief. He wasn't ready to face Zhou Liru yet. It would be best if she didn't come. It seemed that Zhou Man didn't even know about it. So his face swayed and his spirit recovered. Let's go to Yangzhou. Man Bao's four looked at him and didn't move. Bai Erlang asked him, why did you come this morning? You came so slack, and you got excited again. Yin or reasonable doubts, Lu Shangsha didn't promise you to go out, you sneaked out? But haven't you been familiar with this kind of thing twice? Why is your mood fluctuating so much? Man Bao said quietly, because of Liru. Lu Huan jumped up in fright and shouted, how do you know? Man Bao, why don't I know? Can I not know about my family? Not only did she know that this marriage was still rejected by her. Qian's and Lao Zhutu's worries were not unreasonable, and Man Bao also felt that Liu's family was too high for Liru, but she still asked Zhou Liru. But Zhou Liru refused directly. She said, little aunt, can someone from the Lu family make me an official? She said, I'm not a child anymore. My sister-in-law has said that although the big families outside don't stop girls from going out to ride horses and parade through the streets, they really mind girls doing things for men. I just want to find someone like a big brother or a man. For a person like my little uncle, I will also be an imperial physician in the future. Man Bao asked, can't find it? Then I won't get married, she said. It seems that getting married is for the purpose of having offspring. In fact, that's the same thing. But my life is so long, so I can't focus on it. I also want to have a career. I don't want to be as famous and fortunate as my sister-in-law, at least someone will remember me in 100 years, right? And now that she has the ability, she doesn't have to rely on men to survive, she can support herself, she can take care of herself before her death, and after her, she thinks her family will still be willing to collect her body, and if it doesn't help, there is still a charity hall. Well, if you have money, it is not difficult to ask someone to collect the corpse. Therefore, in Zhou Liru's opinion, marriage is optional. If you can meet someone who is in love with each other or is a confidant like a sister-in-law and an uncle, it's okay. As for Lu Huan, she felt that they were not the same people. She said, he's a little stupid. Marrying him, I'm a little worried about the future. If their family doesn't want me to be an official, he should listen to his grandfather and grandmother's words not to let me become an official, and then they will divorce. Strange. Trouble. So Man Bao said to Qian, Mother, they are not suitable, let's go back to Liu's house. She felt that unless they reached a consensus on certain matters, it would be either the Lu family bullying Li Ru or Li Ru bullying Lu Huan in the future. Knowing that Zhou Man knew, Lu Huan blushed and got up reluctantly. Why don't I go? Man Bao, I didn't bully you, didn't I just tell our family to kiss our family and refuse? Whose family's marriage should not be talked about 10 times or 8 times? Man Baodao, when my fourth brother said we were kissing, he saw our little girl of the age of 10 miles and 8 townships for 5 or 60% of the time, and we met for 20 times. When we meet again, the two families are still very close and affectionate. What should I do? What are you doing? What are you embarrassed about? Lu Huan, who had only had 2 blind dates, was stunned, so many times. Is that because people didn't like your fourth brother, or did your fourth brother not like others? Bai Shan and Yin Or saw that his attention was so diverted, and Chi Chi fell silent. Man Bao waved his hand and said, "That's all in the past. He doesn't look down on others. Of course, most of the time, people look down on him. After all, Shiro's reputation was not very good at that time." Lu Huan, who had been despised by others on both blind dates, asked with the same feeling, "How did sister-in-law Thursday think of brother Thursday?" Man Bao tilted his head, face. "My fourth brother is good looking. In our area, apart from Bai Shan and Bai Er, he is the one who came down, but at that time Bai Shan and the others were too young, so my fourth sister-in-law couldn't see it. When I get to them, I will see my fourth brother." Lu Huan, who was in the capital of outstanding people and who did not see Yang Heshu uncommonly, couldn't understand. "Your fourth brother is very good looking. Just generally handsome, right?" Man Bao nodded affirmatively and said, "Good looking, look at my fourth brother's eyes, are they the same as mine?" He added, "The nose is pretty, and the face is handsome. It's a bit dark because I'm running a business now. I used to be white in the village. If I cover it like my little wife, it can be even whiter, and it will look better." So everyone was talking about the appearance of Shai Lang, who rode out of the inner city and walked all the way out of the outer city. Only then did Lu Huan realize, why did he just leave with people like that? Lu Huan was a little embarrassed, but the unease in his heart dissipated a lot at this moment, and he simply asked, "So you are not embarrassed to me?" Man Bao shook his head. Lu Huan went to see the others. Even Yin he rode a horse and listened to the gossip, and when he saw him look over, he shook his head together. Lu Huan breathed a sigh of relief, refreshed, and said to them, "I've only seen each other twice, but I don't know about the 2 times. He said, I didn't say it the first time. At that time, my family asked me to bring a fruit plate to my grandmother. I did it and was dragged by the old lady inside to talk for a while, and only after I came out did I realize that it was looking at each other. I just raised my head and glanced at the girl. This is over, I don't even know what she looks like. This second time is Liru," Lu Huan said, "I do know what she looks like, but I don't know when she will look at each other. Yesterday, my grandmother asked me to talk to me, and I realized that I was confused again. It was rejected once." See you at 6 p.m. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2453. Man Bao comforted him, "It's not your fault that you were rejected, it's just that you are not suitable." Lu Huan felt a lot of ironing in his heart, but he couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong with us?" Man Bao can't say, Li Ru dislikes him for being stupid, right? So he said, "You can ask Liru." Lu Huan retracted again, looked into the distance and said, "Should we go directly to Yangzhou? Or should we go to your Zhuangzi first?" "Go to my Zhuangzi to put things first, and then go to Yangzhou. Their Zhuangzi is not very far from Yangzhou. At this time, the spring planting in the field is finishing, and basically everyone is planting rice in the field." Man Bao and the others went all the way to Zhuangzi, and saw that some of the seedlings in the farmland on both sides had turned green. She was not happy. She said, "It will be good to have 2 spring rains in 2 days." Bai Shan nodded, "I think this year's wheat is not bad. It has already bowed its head, and it will turn yellow and be harvested in a month. After harvesting, you can plant late rice in the field, or plant some beans to support the land." Man Bao said, if it's too late to plant rice and beans this year, I can still grow some vegetables. Some people are slow, or have few family members, so they can't keep up with the farming season. Fortunately, the land also needs to recuperate, as long as it is not deserted. Zhou Dalan's brothers came to Zhuangzi yesterday. At this time, they received them at the door. Manbao didn't go in. He just handed them his luggage, and then rode away with the carriage. Zhou Dalan only had time to exhort, "Come back early in the evening." Manbao responded from a distance and ran away. The gates of Yangzhou city were still the same. Manbao and the others lined up to enter the city. Once they entered the gate, they were all confused. Bai Shan asked, "Where are we going to find Mrs. Tang?" Manbao said in distress, "I forgot to ask her yesterday." "Forget it, let's go to the best restaurant in Yangzhou and have a look." She said, "Since you said you want to invite me to dinner, you will definitely wait in the restaurant. That street is full of food. Let's go there and find it one by one." Yin He looked up at the sun and said, "It's not time for lunch yet, right?" Manbao, "It's all right, let's walk slowly over there." So, they really walked slowly, mainly to look at the shops and small stalls on both sides of the street. The things on the streets of Yangzhou are a little different from those in the capital. Even the sugar man is a little fatter than the ones in the capital. Manbao seemed to like it very much, bought 5 of them in one go, and divided them one by one. Everyone walked forward with a sugar man in one hand and a horse in the other. There were still people playing monkey shows on the street. This can only be seen in the outer city in the capital, and it is also true for them who rarely go out of the inner city. Rare. Moreover, the monkey opera in Yangzhou is different from that in Beijing. Everyone squeezed in together to watch, and watched while eating the candy man. When they saw the wonderful things, they cheered with the people next to them. They didn't hesitate to make money. They took out a bunch of money from the money bag and took out 7 or 8 reward with copper coins. Yin Or saw that he took a bunch of money from Chang Xiao's hand, and was about to put it all on the tray. He immediately retracted his hand, and took off the thread, trying to count 7 or 8 people. But seeing the person holding the tray staring at him with wide eyes in disbelief, his face turned a little red, his heart was beating violently, his eyes were red after a long absence, and his hands were a little flustered, so he slapped him 10 times. Several dozen coins were placed on the tray, and because of the trembling of the hands, several coins still fell to the ground, making the sound of jingle bells. The other party was stunned for a moment, then hurriedly smiled and bowed his body to thank Yin Or, and said repeatedly, "Thank you Lang Jun is blessed." After saying a few auspicious words, he squatted down to pick up the money and left with a smile. Manbao looked at Yin Or and said to him, "Don't be nervous." Yin Or nodded. Manbao smiled, but his heart sank. After a while, the busker with the monkey on his arm came over, saluted Yin Or slightly, and said with a smile, "Young master is the most generous today, and the little old man specially performed a unique trick for you today." After talking, he led the monkey to jump left and right, and then took out the bamboo circle, and led it to jump in and out. Everyone was dazzled and cheered loudly. Yin Or also felt good looking and her eyes were shining, so she was so excited that she directly rewarded people with money. It was already a quarter of an hour after everyone squeezed out, and Manbao couldn't help but look at Yin Or again and again. Yin Or and Bai Shan noticed it and couldn't help looking at her together. Yin Or also reached out and touched his face, and asked a little embarrassedly, "Am I sick again?" He always thought that his easy blush and tears was a disease. Manbao also thought so, but at this time she was not sure, just asked very strangely, "Are you nervous just now?" Yin He was a little embarrassed and said, "I'm a little embarrassed, but not nervous." After all, he took back the money he had given out, and he seemed stingy. In fact, he was also a little remorseful. He should have waited for them to reward them and learned how to do them after seeing how they did it. Man Bao touched his chin and said, "It's strange, you can't change your face in the face of life and death. Why do you have arrhythmia when people scold you or look at you in a strange way?" Bai Shan on the side said, "He put his life and death aside, and then has a thin skin." Man Bao stared at his white face and nodded in agreement, so he reached out and patted Yin Or's shoulder and said, "You can't do this, you need to practice thicker skin in the future." Yin Or. Bai Shan looked at his face carefully, nodded and said, "I see. Your thin face is only for people you don't know well. I think you are very cheeky to us now." Yin Or's face was a little bit red again, but it wasn't very obvious, at least not as red as he was when he faced the monkey juggler before, almost dripping blood. Man Bao scratched his head and decided to go back to check on his body to see if his disease had relapsed. It looked fine before. Bai Erlang and Lu Huan had already rushed to the front, and soon ran back. Bai Erlang pointed to the front and said, "I seem to have seen the carriage of the Tang family emblem just now." Everyone's eyes widened and they immediately asked, "Where?" "Ahead, the parking lot of the banquet building." Man Bao, "The banquet building? I haven't eaten it before, so I just went to eat it." Bai Shan also said, "I just happened to be hungry, let's go." So everyone decided to finish the candy man in their hands first, otherwise it would be rude to go to someone while eating, and they didn't know if Mrs. Tang had guests, so they couldn't be rude. So everyone bit the candy man and walked forward, and after walking 20 or 30 steps, they saw the carriage of the Tang family emblem. Everyone's eyes lit up, and they were about to step forward when suddenly a person flew out of the banquet building and hit them with a pop not far in front of them. See you at 9. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2454. Man Bao and the others were startled, including Yin Or. They all jumped back in a conditioned reflex, and then looked at the person lying in front of them clutching their stomachs in surprise. A young man came out of the banquet building with a sullen face, still holding a corner of his robe in his hand. He directly tucked his robe into his belt and walked over step by step, kicking the person who just got up with one foot. And then right on the person, squeeze your fist and punch. A few servants rushed out of the building and shouted, "Uncle, what are you doing? Stop now." I was about to go up to stop it, but more people rushed out of the building, and they rushed up, the servants stopped the servants, and a few young men who were obviously not servants ran out and shouted loudly, "This is the master's. Do you dare to intervene, you dog slaves? Dare to beat your uncle? How much courage do you have? You Majiaxai want to deceive people." So no one stopped him. The young man squeezed his fist and slammed it down. Of course, it is impossible for the pinned person to lie down and let him beat him. After dodging twice, he found that he couldn't escape, so he pushed the person away with his head and turned over to fight each other. When the young people saw it, they got angry and shouted, "Okay, you Ma Hongzhong, you dare to beat your uncle." The women upstairs were so angry that they didn't make a sound, and one of them lay down at the window and scolded below, "Lu San, you have no hands or courage, just watch him beat your brother-in-law, you won't come on. Do you want my mother to go down and do it herself?" Mrs. Tang pulled her away, probed out, and said to the group of brothers-in-law below, "What are you afraid of? Just do it, as long as you don't beat people to death and maim, and the sky falls, I will support you with auntie." The lady and sister-in-law both said so. The young people could only roll up their sleeves and go up together, and they quickly dragged Ma Hongzhong, who had just turned defeat into victory, and beat him with one kick and one fist. Man Bao and the others all opened their mouths wide, and the sugar cubes in their mouths were about to fall out. After reacting, they immediately closed their mouths and crunched them, swallowed them quickly, and almost choked. But she couldn't care about it at this time, and while moving her mouth, she raised her head to look at the second floor, and then looked down at the people who were surrounded and beaten. She vaguely knew why Madame Tang invited her over. Bai Shan and the others grew up, and this was the first time they saw such a rampant beating in the street. They originally wanted to stop it, but Madame Tang suddenly made a noise, so they stopped and looked up at the rampant pointing people to fight. Mrs. Tang. The fight is going to happen. In the beginning, except for the young man, everyone else was soft with their fists and feet. Although they were angry, they obviously held back their strength, but they slowly let go. Man Bao finished eating the candy and stepped forward to stop them. Okay, don't fight. The red-eyed man said angrily, who are you? Madame Tang, who was upstairs, saw Man Bao, and immediately raised her voice to the people below. Okay, let them drag the people back, tell the Ma family, let them come to me if they have something, I will wait for them in the capital. After saying that, she retracted her head and came downstairs in a while. Only then did the young people reach out and hold the young people who wanted to continue. Mrs. Tang led a group of sisters to the front of Ma Hongzhong, stepped on his right hand and crushed it hard, and everyone's expressions changed greatly. This action is extremely insulting to readers. Ma Hongzhong's bruised face was full of haze, so Madame Tang approached him condescendingly and said, Ma Hongzhong, our Wang family's girls are not easy to be bullied, Yuan Rule's body, today only suffered 1%, in the future. It's still growing, just wait. Ma Hongzhong was slightly stunned. Before he could speak, Madame Tang increased the strength on her feet and crushed her hard. After hearing his screams, she moved her feet away. She glanced at Man Bao calmly and gave her a wink. Man Bao was stunned for a moment, then immediately put the candy stick in Bai Shan's hand, rolled up his sleeves and stepped forward. Come on, let me see, I'm a doctor. The servant of the Ma family wanted to come over, but was still stopped. Man Bao squatted down to look at Ma Hongzhong. He couldn't bear to look directly at him. It was so miserable. Man Bao didn't look at his face, reached out to touch his body, and asked, let me see, are my hands and feet broken? Madame Tang gave the servants a wink, and they let the servants of the Ma family come over. They immediately rushed to help Ma Hongzhong, but Man Bao hurriedly stopped him. No hurry, but you can't move around. If the bone is broken, the movement will be displaced. I'll check it first. The servants of the Ma family did not know Zhou Man, nor did they know that Zhou Man and Mrs. Tang knew each other, but seeing that she was well dressed and her hand was very skillful, she picked up their husband's hand and shook it for inspection, but she didn't move for a while. Man Bao introduced himself to them enthusiastically, I'm a female doctor, don't worry, I'm very experienced in treating this kind of trauma, first check if the bones are broken. Ma Hongzhong was also very scared, so he lay still and let Zhou Man check. Man Bao checked his whole body, and the onlookers talked a lot, thinking that Mrs. Tang and the others were bullying others. Mrs. Tang did not explain, and let them point. After all the treasures were touched, he knew what he knew, and said with a smile to Ma Hongzhong, Lang Jun is lucky, it seems that these Lang Jun are still merciful, they look serious, but in fact there is no internal injury at all are contusions, rest for a while. Enough. Ma Hongzhong breathed a sigh of relief, but immediately felt that something was wrong. He covered his chest and said, no, my chest hurts so badly that I can't breathe. Really, but I see that you are full of anger, it doesn't look like you can't breathe. Man Bao patted his shoulder, which happened to be on his wound. She said with a smile, don't worry, after all, it is the imperial doctor of the imperial hospital, you will not see it wrong. Go back to the pharmacy and get some medicine for promoting blood circulation and removing blood stasis, and it will be fine after a while. When Ma Hongzhong heard her claiming to be an imperial physician, his face immediately turned black. There is only one woman in the entire Dajin who can become an imperial physician, and that is Zhou Man. And others don't know, as in-laws, can they still not know? Zhou Man and Tang He are on good terms. Ma Hongzhong looked at Mrs. Tang, who was standing. Madame Tang looked at him with a sneer, and said, "You still don't get out, why, do you still want to be beaten?" She turned her head to the young man and said, "Fifth brother, give your brother-in-law a ride." When the young man heard this, he stepped forward with one foot and kicked the other with the other. The onlookers suddenly realized that this is the brother-in-law beating the brother-in-law. After seeing so many noble ladies here, it would be wrong for everyone to look at Ma Hongzhong on the ground. What kind of wrathful thing did he do to cause so many brothers-in-law and sister-in-law in the family to come to him to settle accounts? In the end, Ma Hongzhong was staggered and snatched away by the servants of the Ma family. Only then did Man Bao wipe his hands with the handkerchief, and sighed with Madame Tang, "I knew that the meal of my sister-in-law was not delicious. See you tomorrow."